My name is Brooke Callahan. I'm 22 years old. 3 weeks ago, I was standing in my parents' kitchen when my mother slid a check across the counter. $43,000. My college fund, every penny my grandmother had put aside for me since I was born. The check wasn't made out to me. It was made out to Tyler Raines, my sister Danielle's boyfriend of 11 months. I couldn't breathe. I looked at my father. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at my mother. She was smiling. "Tyler has real potential, Brooke," she said. "He's starting a business. This is an investment in the family's future. You'll figure something out. You always do." My sister stood behind them, arms crossed, not even pretending to care. Tyler was already folding the check into his wallet, but what they didn't know was that my grandmother had planned for exactly this. She'd seen who my parents really were long before I did. And that night, the very same night they handed my future to a stranger, Grandma's lawyer made a phone call that turned their whole world upside down. Before I tell you what happened next, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from and what time is it there? I love hearing from all of you. Now let me take you back to where it all started. Growing up in Knoxville, Tennessee, I learned early that in my family, love wasn't given equally. It was rationed. And my sister always got the bigger share. My family, Dad, Richard, a sales manager who avoided conflict like it was a disease. Mom, Lorraine, who ran our household and everyone in it with an iron opinion. My older sister Danielle, 25, the golden child who could do no wrong. And me, Brooke, the quiet one, the responsible one. The one they called when something needed doing but never when something needed celebrating. Danielle got attention. I got chores. When I was 14, I won a regional science competition. Spent 3 months building a water filtration prototype. Came home with a trophy and a letter from the judges recommending me for a state-level program. Mom glanced at it, said, "That's nice, honey," and turned back to helping Danielle pick out a dress for homecoming. Dad drove Danielle to 6 different stores that weekend looking for the perfect shoes. My trophy sat on the kitchen counter for 2 days before I carried it to my room myself. I told myself it was fine. Science fairs weren't a big deal to most people. At 17, I got accepted to every college I applied to. 4 schools, including one with a partial scholarship. My parents threw a dinner, for Danielle, who'd just gotten a promotion at the boutique where she worked part-time. My acceptances were mentioned once, between the salad and the main course. "Oh, and Brooke got into some schools too." That was it. No toast. No, "We're proud of you." I told myself they were just busy. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Last year, I asked my parents to come to an academic awards ceremony where I was being honored for having the highest GPA in my program. 200 students, and I was at the top. Mom said she couldn't make it because Danielle needed help apartment hunting. Dad said he'd try. He didn't show up. I sat in that auditorium, heard my name called, walked across that stage, and looked out at an audience full of proud families. My seat in the parent section was empty. I told myself it didn't hurt, but it did. It always had. And all of that was just the warm-up for what came next. 8 months ago, Danielle started dating Tyler Raines. He was 27, between jobs, which is a generous way of saying he hadn't held steady employment in over 2 years. He had ideas, though. Big ideas. He wanted to open a mobile detailing business, talked about it constantly. Showed up to family dinners with printouts of business plans that looked like they were written by someone who'd skimmed half a YouTube video on entrepreneurship. My parents loved him. Not because he was kind to Danielle, which he mostly was. Not because he was hardworking, which he wasn't. They loved him because he was confident, charismatic. He looked them in the eye and told them he was going to be somebody, and they believed every word. Meanwhile, I was 2 semesters away from finishing my degree in biomedical engineering. Dean's List every semester. Working 20 hours a week at the campus research lab. Saving everything I could because I knew I'd need it. See, my grandmother, my mom's mother Helen, had set up a college fund for me when I was born. She'd contributed to it for 18 years. Birthday money, holiday gifts, a portion of her pension. By the time I turned 18, that fund held about $43,000. It was in my parents' names as custodians, because I'd been a minor when it was created. I'd always assumed that money was untouchable, sacred. It was Grandma Helen's gift to my future. I assumed wrong. 3 weeks ago, I came home for a weekend visit. I was planning to talk to my parents about the next semester's tuition. I needed access to the fund, the whole reason it existed. That's when I walked into the kitchen and found my mother writing that check. $43,000. Every cent of it. Made out to Tyler Raines. What is this? My voice was barely above a whisper. Mom didn't even flinch. Tyler's business needs startup capital. Your father and I discussed it. This is the best use of the money right now. The best use? That's my college fund. Grandma set that up for me. Dad finally spoke, still not looking at me. Brooke, you're smart. You can get scholarships, loans. Tyler needs this now. Danielle's future depends on it too. Danielle's future? I stared at my sister. She shrugged. Actually shrugged. It's not like you can't figure it out, Brooke. You're the smart one, remember? Tyler pocketed the check and put his arm around Danielle. I really appreciate this, Mr. and Mrs. C. You won't regret it. I stood there, hands shaking, throat tight. 22 years of being the responsible one, the one who earned everything, the one who never asked for anything, the one who sat in empty auditoriums and told herself it didn't matter. And the one thing that had been promised to me, the one thing my grandmother had built with her own hands, dollar by dollar, year after year, because she believed in my future, was gone. Handed to a man I barely knew because he had a dream and a smile and my sister's approval. I didn't cry. Not in front of them. I didn't scream or beg or make a scene. I just stood there and felt something inside me shift, like a bone that had been out of place for years finally snapping. Not breaking, realigning. I picked up my keys. I walked out the front door. No one tried to stop me. I drove back to campus that night. Sat in my car in the parking lot of my apartment building. The engine was off, but I couldn't bring myself to go inside. I kept replaying my mother's voice. You'll figure something out. You always do. That was the cruelest part. They weren't even worried about me. They just assumed I'd survive. I always had. I opened my phone and did something I'd never done before. I called my grandmother's best friend, a woman named June Whitfield. Grandma Helen had passed 2 years ago, but June and I had stayed in touch, birthday cards, the occasional text. Grandma had always told me, if you ever need anything and I'm not here, call June. She knows everything. June picked up on the second ring. She always picked up for me. In the 2 years since Grandma passed, June had become the closest thing I had to a real family member who actually cared. She remembered my birthday. She asked about my classes. She once drove 2 hours to bring me soup when I had the flu because my own mother said she was too busy with Danielle's apartment crisis to come. Brooke? Sweetheart, what's wrong? You sound like you've been crying. I told her everything. The check, Tyler, my parents, the fund. I told her about sitting in my car feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath me. June was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, almost fierce, and she said something that changed everything. Brooke, your grandmother knew this might happen. She told me. She sat me down about 6 months before she passed and told me exactly what she was afraid of. What do you mean? She hired a lawyer, a woman named Patricia Okafor. Your grandmother restructured things before she died. She told me if your parents ever touched that money for anything other than your education, I was supposed to call Patricia immediately. My heart was pounding. June, are you serious? I'm calling her tonight. Sit tight, sweetheart. Your grandmother planned for this. She saw who they were. She always saw clearly, even when the rest of us didn't. June hung up. I sat in that dark parking lot, and for the first time in years, I felt something I couldn't quite name. Not hope. Not yet. Something quieter. Someone had seen me. Someone had planned for me. Even from beyond, my grandmother was still looking out for me. What happened next unfolded faster than I could have imagined. Patricia Okafor called my parents that same night. 9:30 in the evening, a Tuesday. I know because my mother called me at 9:47, and for the first time in my entire life, her voice was shaking. Not with sadness, with fear. "Brooke, did you call a lawyer on us?" "No, Mom. Grandma did." Silence. 10 full seconds of silence. Here's what I learned over the following days. My grandmother hadn't just set up a college fund. In the final year of her life, she'd worked with Patricia to create a legal trust. The $43,000 wasn't just sitting in a savings account in my parents' names. It had been converted into a restricted educational trust with me as the sole beneficiary. My parents were listed as trustees with a fiduciary obligation to use the funds exclusively for my education. By writing that check to Tyler, they had violated the terms of the trust, legally and explicitly. Patricia sent my parents a formal letter within 48 hours. It outlined the breach, demanded the full return of the funds within 14 days, and informed them that failure to comply would result in civil action and potential criminal charges for misappropriation of trust assets. The letter also revealed something else my parents hadn't known. Grandma Helen had left a secondary provision in the trust. If my parents were ever found to have misused the funds, trusteeship would transfer immediately to June Whitfield, and an additional $15,000 from Grandma's estate, held in a separate account, would be released directly to me as compensatory damages. My grandmother had anticipated betrayal and built a fortress around my future. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched my parents scramble. For the first time in my life, they were the ones panicking, and I was the calm one. Tyler, of course, had already spent $11,000 of the money on equipment, a van wrap, and a website for his detailing business. My parents had to demand it back from him. That went about as well as you'd expect. Tyler refused at first, said a deal was a deal. He told my father that the money was a gift, not a loan, and that he wasn't giving back a dime. My father, the man who had never once stood up for me, apparently found his spine when his own savings were on the line. He threatened to go to the police. Tyler returned what he could. Danielle called me screaming, saying I was ruining her relationship and her life. "You're so selfish, Brooke. You could have just gotten loans like everyone else. Why do you always have to make everything about you?" I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just said, "The money was never yours to give, Danielle, and it was never his to take." My father tried a different approach. He called me 3 times in one day, each call more desperate. "Brooke, please, can you just tell the lawyer to back off? We can work this out as a family." "This stopped being a family matter when you gave away my future, Dad. You had a legal obligation. You broke it." "Your mother and I were trying to help." "You were trying to help Danielle, like always. Except this time it wasn't your money to use." He went quiet. Then he said, "Your grandmother would be disappointed in how you're handling this." That one cut deep, but I knew better. "Actually, Dad, Grandma is the one who set this up. She's the reason I have a lawyer at all. So I think she'd be pretty okay with how I'm handling it." He hung up. The 14-day deadline passed. My parents managed to recover $31,000 from Tyler. They had to pull the remaining $12,000 from their own savings to make the fund whole. Patricia confirmed receipt of the full $43,000, which was transferred into a new account under June's trusteeship. The additional $15,000 from Grandma's estate was released to me directly. $58,000. My education secured. My grandmother's legacy protected. But the money was only part of it. Word got out in the family. My Aunt Diane, my father's sister, called me after hearing what happened. "Brooke, I had no idea. I always knew Lorraine favored Danielle, but I never thought they'd go this far." My cousin Marcus texted me. Grandma Helen was the realest one in this family. Glad she had your back. At a family gathering I didn't attend, apparently my Uncle Roy confronted my parents directly. You took money from your own daughter's trust to give to some boyfriend? What were you thinking? My mother tried to explain that Tyler was practically family. Roy said, "He's been around 11 months, Lorraine. Brooke's been your daughter for 22 years. 3 separate relatives called my parents after that dinner. Each one said some version of the same thing. What you did was wrong. My mother stopped posting on Facebook for 3 weeks. My father started screening his calls. The image they'd spent 25 years building, the devoted parents, the tight-knit family, the people who always did right by their children, it was gone. Not because I destroyed it, because the truth did. Sometimes the truth is quieter than revenge, and 10 times more devastating. As for Tyler, his detailing business lasted exactly 6 weeks before he ran out of money and motivation. Turns out, charisma doesn't replace a business plan, and confidence doesn't substitute for competence. He and Danielle broke up a month after that. She moved back in with my parents, into her old bedroom, surrounded by the consequences of the choices they'd all made together. The van with the custom wrap sat in their driveway for 3 weeks before Tyler finally came to pick it up. 11 months of dating, $43,000, and a broken family. That's what my parents' investment got them. That was 3 months ago now. Today, I'm finishing my degree. I'll graduate in May with honors, top of my class in biomedical engineering. The trust fund is covering my remaining tuition and living expenses, exactly as Grandma Helen intended. The extra $15,000 is sitting in a savings account that I plan to use for graduate school applications. My parents have tried to reconcile. Mom sent a long email, not quite an apology, more of an explanation. She said they got caught up in wanting to help Danielle find stability, and that they didn't think about the legal implications. She never once said, "I'm sorry we didn't value your future." Dad sent a shorter message. "I should have said no to your mother. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you." That one at least felt honest. I've responded to both of them. I told them I'm open to rebuilding something, but it has to be different. No more being the family afterthought. No more sacrificing my needs for Danielle's wants. No more assumptions that I'll just figure it out while everyone else gets taken care of. We've had 2 phone calls since then. They're awkward, careful, full of long pauses and half-finished sentences. Nothing like the easy relationship I used to pretend we had. But they're real. And real is better than the lie I was living before. I don't hate my parents. I want to be clear about that. I think they're flawed people who got so used to overlooking me that they forgot I was a person with my own dreams and my own future. They treated Danielle like a project and me like furniture. Always there, never noticed until they needed something. Forgiving them is a process. Some days I'm closer to it than others. But forgiveness and trust are 2 different things, and trust has to be earned back slowly. Danielle hasn't spoken to me. I don't know if she ever will. Part of me still loves my sister. I remember who she was before she became the favorite, before the family dynamic turned us into competitors instead of teammates. But I've accepted that loving someone doesn't mean letting them take from you. And missing someone doesn't mean you have to let them back in before they've changed. June checks in every week. She sends me recipes and photos of her garden and stories about my grandmother. Last week she told me something Grandma Helen said near the end. That girl doesn't know how strong she is yet. But she will, and when she does, they won't know what hit them. I think about that a lot. If you're watching this and you're the one in your family who always gives, always sacrifices, always puts yourself last because you think that's what love requires, I want you to hear this. Love doesn't ask you to disappear. It doesn't require you to shrink. And it never, ever asks you to hand over your future so someone else can gamble with it. Your worth isn't measured by how much you give to people who never give back. It's measured by the life you build when you finally start giving to yourself. My grandmother knew that. She made sure I'd learn it too. I just wish she were here so I could thank her. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Have you ever had someone in your life who protected you, even when you didn't know you needed it? I'd love to hear about them. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, remember, you're not selfish for choosing yourself. You're finally free.